Hello everyone and welcome back to the pit. Today I am doing a different video, a video that might be the first of a series. I don't know how long it's gonna be. It's more likely than not be with the irregular scheduling, where I am going to give the newer players some strategy and tactics pointers in order to improve on their gameplay, in order to better enjoy the game. But again, since this is the very first video on the subject matter, I thought, why not doing a video where I explain some of the basics behind bolt action and why this makes bolt action a great game in my humble opinion. So let's start. If you are already knowledgeable about bolt action, honestly, this video is not for you. If you already know the mechanics and everything, I won't be telling anything new for you. But if you are a new player, if you heard about the game and are just wondering what type of game it is, and if you might be interested in trying it, so this might be helpful for you. So without further ado, let's say some things. First things first. Bolt Action is a game that was developed by Warlord Games, and in particular by two men, Rick Priestley and Alessio Calatore. They were both Games Workshop employees. Now you might start to notice a trend with the love of the British for the letters G and W. But besides this, so the first edition of the game was released in 2012, and the game is currently in its third edition, which released just the last year and is still in development. It's on a 28mm scale, so like 1:160 ratio, more or less. And it's a game about Second World War. In this game, you every player takes command of a group of soldiers from one of the belligerent nations in World War II, and together you play battles. Now, the first thing I want to say, Bolt Action is a game set in the Second World War. Bolt Action is not a simulation game. What do I mean with this? That while, as you see, all of the gaming pieces, all of the tanks, all of the weapons, all of the armies are basically historical. But the game is meant to be easy and simple to play. So if you are a World War II nerd, World War II buff, you might see some things that aren't exactly detailed, aren't exactly perfect. This is by design, because the idea behind the game is to have a game that is so-called beer and pretzel, so a game you can enjoy with your friends, with your gaming buddies, with your colleagues, whomever, with your sons, with your fathers, whomever you want. Now there are tournaments, there is a competitive circuit behind the game, but It's still a game of chance because it's played with dice, and again, the game is meant to be on a scale from simplicity to fully realistic. It gravitates more towards simplicity. Now, to me, this is a very good thing, because it allows you to start enjoying the game immediately. You don't have a lot of tables to follow. The core rules are very, very easy and simple to learn, and this is what you should take this game as, is a fun way to spend a day, an afternoon, an evening, whatever you want. Don't look for too much detail in this, because you won't find it. You will be disappointed if what you're looking for is a realistic simulation of World War II. Now, there are armies from, again, all the belligerent nation in World War II, both vehicles, infantries, artilleries, whatever. Now, of course, War Games has its own range of miniatures. There are, of course, other companies that sell World War II miniatures. It's up to you, whatever you do with your armies. Now, let's talk about what differentiates bolt action from other 28mm games like Warhammer 40k, for example. Now, most games, most older games especially, are based on the I go, you go format. The game is played in turns. Now, one player acts. He moves all of its troops, armies, whatever, resolves movement, shooting, hand to hand, if any, and then the turn goes to the other player. Bolt action is completely different, and to me, this is the single most win aspect of the game. Now, when you have all of your turn at your disposal, bar some limited interaction like Overwatch or something like that, it's rather easy to plan your whole strategy, your whole turn, because you know that 9 times out of 10 your opponent is only going to stand there and suffer whatever you do to him. When you start shooting, you can decide the exact order in which your units are shooting. You don't have to worry too much about, again, the opponent reacting, and so it's rather easy to plan all of your moves. Now, bolt action does something a little, it introduces a little difference, a little key difference. Now, you can see from this image that there are some regular 6-sided dice, and there are other 6-sided dice with some words written on them. These are the order dice. Now, list building works pretty much just like Warhammer 40k and basically all other war games out there. Every unit you want to field has a certain points cost associated with it. You decide when you show up to a game, you decide, for example, let's have a 1000 points game, so you basically build your armies with a certain limitation that we won't discuss right now. So within that set amount of points, let's say 1000, you are free to mix and mash whatever troops you like, whatever troops you have already painted, whatever. The extra thing, for every unit you field in your army, you get one of these order dice. For example, let's say I have 10 units in my army. I get 10 dice, 10 order dice of one color. Let's assume my opponent, also at 1000 points, has 10 units, for simplicity's sake. He gets 10 order dice as well. Only his dice will be of a different color. It doesn't matter the color, it's the same. So, we in total have 20 order dice. We get all 20 dice and we put them in a bag, like this. Then the game begins with turn 1. Now, again, let's take Warhammer 40k for reference, since it's one of the most popular war games out there. Usually in 40k you would roll off to see whose turn is first. In bolt action there is no such thing as player 1 turn and player 2 turn. So we have our 20 order dice. They are all in a bag like this one. We shuffle the bag and at random we take out of the bag one of the order dice. Now, the dice will either be my color or my opponent's color. If the color is mine, I get to choose one of my units and have them do an action. It might be walking, it might be running, it might be firing, it might be looking for cover, whatever. There are 6 possible units, 6 possible orders. So you choose one of your units, you give them an order, and then that's it. Then you go back to your bag and pick up another dice. Now, the dice could still be of my color, for example, or it can be my opponent's. Again, if it's my color, I get to pick another unit, one that has not acted already during the current turn, and have it perform an action. If it's my opponent's, it's my opponent that chooses one of his units to activate. I think it's already clear where I'm going. You can never know in advance the activation order of the units. This completely changes the way you play, because unlike, again, I Go You Go games, where a lot of time you just stay there, maybe roll some saves to see if you guys survive. One player is active and the other is passive. In bolt action there is no such thing, because since neither of the players know in advance whose order dice will be picked up next from the bag, you are all the time you're on your toes. You have to start planning on what to do if your dice comes up, and you can have to adapt your strategy all the time, because you go into battle with one battle plan. Let's say, for example, I want my unit, let's say, for example, these units of infantry down here, I wanted to move around and shoot at the guys here. Okay, this is my original plan, but what happens if my opponent acts first? And let's say, for example, he shoots at this unit with an artillery and kills half the unit. Now I get the next dice. Maybe activating this unit, which was my original plan, isn't exactly the smartest thing to do any longer. But I will delve into order decision making in another video. For now, it will be enough to say that this alternating system means that games keep changing all the time. The replayability is absolute, not only because of dice roll, of course, but also the fact that the activation order varies and changes constantly adds to a strategic layer that is unparalleled. It's beautiful. Trust me. If you try this system, it will feel weird to go back to an I go, you go system. You will feel funny inside. And then there's a second mechanic, which is again very, very smart and pure genius in my opinion. That is pinning. What is pinning? Pinning represents the combat stress accrued by soldiers. I'm again using 40k as an example. Basically, when it's your turn to move your units, they do what you tell them to do, unless there are special units with special rules that might be forced to charge or something like that. But usually, most of the times, your units do exactly what you want them to do. Now, in bolt action, there is also a psychological aspect, because it tries to simulate, again, the stress that being under fire brings to soldiers, because again, we are not playing in a fantasy environment. We are playing during World War II, in the World War II period, and so that's people, okay, out there that are fighting, and they might not always do what their commander wants, especially if they are stressed out. Now, the pinning mechanics is represented by a counter. It can be a dice, it can be a token, whatever, it doesn't matter. Every time a unit is shot at by the enemy and is hit by the enemy, despite the casualties that may or may not happen, the unit suffers at least one pin. Now, units that have no pin activate normally, as you would expect. You want them to run, they run. You want them to shoot, they shoot. Now, they might not shoot straight, but they try. If a unit has at least one pin, there's a chance that the soldiers do not obey their commander and or leader's order, that they are too scared, they are too stressed. This is represented by a check, a leadership check, if you will. You test with 2 dice against the trooper's leadership characteristic or morale characteristic, and you apply a penalty equal to the amount of pins that the troopers have, which means that the more pins a unit has on it, the more difficult it will be for the unit to activate. If you manage to pass your test, you're fine. The unit acts, they do what you want them to do. If they fail, the unit does nothing, they go to ground and start shaking in their boots, and they just try to survive. Again, this mechanic has enormous implication in gameplay, because many times it won't be necessary to kill off a unit completely in order to make it perform badly on the battlefield. Even pinning a unit enough, suppressing it, so you've all probably heard about the concept of suppression fire. Pinning goes exactly in that direction. It's a suppression mechanic. If all of your enemy's units are suppressed, more likely than not, your opponent will be able to activate less and less of their units, thus making your life easier. So, two main mechanics in bolt action: random activation with auto dice and the pinning mechanic. These, in my opinion, are the two genius level ideas that make bolt action stand out from all other games out there. They give replayability, and again, they add a strategic layer that is unsurpassed. You won't find this in most other games. Now, you can play, as you can see from some of these pictures that I'm going inputted beyond. See, for example, these are pin counters, small red explosions, or you can just use some colored dice. Again, these, all the red dice you see on this in this picture, they are pin indicators. So this unit has 2 pins, this unit has 1, this unit has 4, etc., etc., etc. Two key mechanics that make the game awesome. All right, these are just the first few things about bolt action. Again, I want to try and keep this video rather simple, so I am stopping it here. The idea is to do a couple more in the future. Of course, whether or not I am going to make a real series out of this will depend on your support, on your comments, on your views, on your likes, the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you are interested to hear more about bolt action gameplay. There's a lot to speak about, and we'll see in another occasion. For now, I will say goodbye to you. My wishes are the same, for you to be safe, and ciao ciao.